You're listening to Peak One Sports.
Good morning, and thank you for listening to this episode of the Leadoff on the Peak One Sports Network. I'm Ashton, that's Tony, and we have now been getting you ready for your sports weekend for a year now, celebrating 1 year since starting the show. How does that feel, Tony?
Man, that's a wild. And actually, we didn't even realize it had been a year. We came up this week kind of looking at it like, holy cow!
Yeah.
Looking at some social media memories, and man, what a wild ride it's been on a favor that I owed you, and you're like, hey, jump on the show with me, be my co-host, and
Yeah, that wasn't even part of this network at the time. As many shows are on this network, they predate Peak One Sports, which we'll talk about that here soon. The Peak One is coming up on a year as well. But yeah, it's kind of wild how it started, where it was just this show, and then broke off with the sports page, and then we added Bungalow and many other shows that have been on here, and it started with you and me, and now we're going like what we say 12 contributors strong between every show, writers, Friday Night Football, everything we have on here is grown, and not quite a year yet. A couple days for the show, and then I think about a week and a half to 2 weeks for Peak One Sports itself. So we'll definitely in the next couple of weeks be talking about that as well, and and it's just crazy how this network has grown in just a year. I can't even imagine what it could be like in another year and going into 2025.
Yeah, we've already been looking to 2025, and some major changes will be happening this year.
Yeah,
For the good, nothing for the bad. Just for growth and expansion and better opportunities through the network, and to bring more great sports content. It's just so surreal how this all came together on just a couple guys, talking sports on Saturday mornings.
Yeah, and then technical difficulties led us to do our own thing. I mean, there's just so much that we can get into, and maybe we'll talk about it next week or the week after, whenever it's fitting to talk about Peak One in general. But yeah, we're just talking about the leadoff right now. A year in the leadoff, a year of getting all of y'all ready for your y'all sports weekends. But thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed already to our YouTube page, go ahead and do that. Follow if you're listening on your podcast platform. If you like what you're listening to, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you don't like us, just go ahead and hit it twice. This episode is brought to you by Betalytics. Don't bet with your gut. Check out Betalytics and get help making your picks using their AI algorithms. Use promo code PEAK1 for 25% off when you sign up today. Go to Betalytics.com to start betting smarter. Okay, I know LeBron's going to get criticism for this. I feel like anybody would get criticism usually when they talk about money and things at this point. And, when you're at LeBron's level, you just get criticized every time you open your mouth, one way or the other. But LeBron James is seeking to sign a multi-year deal with the Lakers this offseason that will be 9 figures, which sounds crazy. But then when you think about it, not that I'm defending it or saying he shouldn't or whatever. I mean, was he 39 years old going into his 21st? It'll be his 22nd season next year. He's already getting paid $50 million. So you're saying, is he going to sign a 2-3 year deal? No, we don't know worth that amount. He's getting up there, but I mean, he's still scoring 25 points a game. He's still very active. Now whether that's going to be worth $50 million a year is the question, but in terms of the Lakers attendance, jersey sales, things like that, I think that pays for itself over again, just having LeBron James on your team.
Yes. But I think
from a cap standpoint, it's probably,
yeah. I mean, in today's NBA, you honestly, the Lakers are such a draw for any big star. It's almost the Yankees of baseball that, free agents, players want to go play there. That they're always a top landing spot.
Yeah.
And yes, LeBron has the biggest draw in maybe in sports right now. Man, I don't know. I don't know if it pays off,
Okay, if you're the Lakers, is there any way that if he wants to come back, you don't bring him back? Like, it's one thing to say, does it make sense? It's another thing to say, are you going to tell him no if he doesn't want to come back? Or not tell him no, but tell him this is the contract we're going to offer you?
I don't know that the Lakers are ready with his age. I don't know that they would be looking short term. This is a short term move. This is not a long term move. And I don't know, in the coming years, the Lakers are always that team on the cusp. I don't know they're going to be bad enough to actually be able to draft Bronny. And that was something that LeBron wanted.
We got things on that though. So you had to finish your point though.
I don't know. If I'm the Lakers, I don't spend that much cash to bring LeBron back, even for that draw. I go out and I would want to spend that money for a younger guy that can still bring a decent draw. Maybe not what LeBron is, but you're not solely looking at the dollars. I mean, this isn't the Dallas Cowboys. You're not looking at just your brand. You're looking at legitimately trying to win games and win championships.
You're looking at your cap, the Lakers can afford this. No, they can afford to pay him $100 million. And whether it goes back to their bottom line or not, in jersey sales and other things, that's not what we're looking at. Is it worth it? You're looking more like, hey, this is a significant chunk of your cap. And I know the NFL cap's going up this year. The NBA might have that here pretty soon with TV deals, although they've many teams have had issues with their respective TV deals. But you say the Lakers drafting Bronny James, because that is a factor apparently that LeBron James did talk about last year, and we talked about on this network, that it may depend on where Bronny James ends up playing in the NBA. And we all had the discussion because they had him as a mid first round pick at the time. And we were saying, well, is it worth it for a team depending on who the number one overall pick, if it's a team like Charlotte or Detroit or one of the smaller market teams, would it make sense to draft them just so they could get LeBron James for 1 year? We were going over all those situations. But now, many mock drafts have Bronny James not even getting drafted. And you wonder, is he going to stay at USC? It's just his freshman year. What's he going to do? LeBron James has criticized a lot of these mock drafts that have his son going undrafted, saying, can y'all just please let the kid be a kid and enjoy college basketball? Which is kind of weird. It's like, nobody asked LeBron. Like, I'm sure there are other podcasts and shows criticizing, but
they're doing their job.
It's like they're doing a mock draft.
Every kid.
Yeah, they're doing a mock draft, and it's like,
I mean, honestly, the same could be said for LeBron, of always hyping it up of, when Bronny gets here, I want to play with him. I want to play with Bronny.
And
dude, why are you looking that far ahead? Let your kid be a kid and let him enjoy what he's doing.
And has he not put more pressure on his kid than anybody else? I saw Space Jam. I mean, I know that's not really his kid. Those are actors, but you think that's not exactly what he's doing on a whole nother level? Like, it kind of made him look like a douche on Space Jam. But I guarantee you that's him more leveled out.
Well, you have to think, I mean,
being hard on your kid.
His kid's growing up, and I don't blame LeBron for this, But to be a superstar like he is, he's showing up in the gyms, he's coaching from the sidelines, he's everything that everyone tells a parent not to be at a game. He's that, and bringing that spotlight on
He's
his
LeBron
kids.
James though. Yeah.
There's so much pressure on Bronny to live up to what what he is, what he was.
Yeah, and there's no doubt. I think he's going to play in the NBA one way or the other. Somebody will, whether it's to get LeBron James or not, it will. I mean, if his dream is to play in the NBA and his father's already a multi-millionaire, he has the option to keep playing in college. Like, why wouldn't you just go and try? Someone's going to take him up. But currently, Bronny James is averaging 5.3 points per game, about 2.5 assists, 2.8 rebounds in his freshman year at USC. I think it would benefit him to stay, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, I did not follow his career going up through high school. He's averaging these at USC, whose their record's 11-17 right now.
I saw a few of his games in high school that were televised, and he wasn't the star of the team. I mean, he wasn't a guy that he didn't put that team on his back. I mean, he was definitely a role player on a very stacked team. I mean, they had all D1 talent on this team. So,
and that's where
he's very talented. I mean, he's playing Division I basketball.
Yeah.
He's playing at USC. He's a very talented basketball player. I mean, I think his talents can transition into the league. I think he can play. He's nowhere near LeBron.
He's got to figure out what his role is going to be. Yeah, LeBron James wasn't just the star. LeBron James was just a completely different animal. Elevating his game, elevating the game itself. Obviously the mock drafts were putting LeBron James at number 1, but they were saying this is a generation-defining player, and he's exceeded the hype. I mean, if you want to argue championships, him versus Michael Jordan, whatever, but there was a distinct difference.
But as a high school player, LeBron coming out and the way he played high school ball and the way that games began to be televised at the high school level through his career and then beyond and being drafted, foregoing college and going straight into the NBA and had a very successful career right off the bat. I mean, he was on a bad team, but overall for himself, he was a very successful player coming in. He's changed the game so much. Like, now you have basketball is dang near all the top national ranked teams are televised.
Yeah.
They're nationally televised. He's changed that game so much that players are playing different. The game of basketball, especially all the way down to the high school level, has changed so much and evolved so much. I think because of LeBron, that makes it tougher for his kids. That makes it tougher for Bronny because Bronny's coming up in what seems like a more talented generation of basketball players.
Yeah, and Bronny going through just the level of not only competition, not only training, just basically a lifestyle of knowing. Like, I don't know when he made the decision to play basketball in his life. I don't know, but it was probably apparent pretty early on that he's going for the NBA, and that he's like, if you have the talent at all, you'll be in the NBA because you have LeBron James as your father. And, scouts seeing you aren't an issue, and, but you go through that training regiment where the game is softer today. I agree. But if you compare eras and say, hey, this team from the 1970s plays the best team from you pick a year, the 1970s plays a team now, they get destroyed. Not because they're necessarily built different, but half the guys up until like the 80s, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird made the NBA more popular, where there were occasional games that were televised. Like you were talking about LeBron James in high school, that guys in the 50s, 60s, 70s in the NBA, they had other jobs too. They didn't make enough money to do this. And Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Lakers, Celtics through the 80s pretty much changed that, made made it a spectacle to watch. And as we've gotten bigger, as the NBA has gotten bigger and more popular, and through LeBron James, you could see that, hey, these kids, you put them through the right training regimen, the right diets, the right workouts, they're nearly NBA ready. Not every single one of them, of course, but if they have an ounce of talent, that's what I'm saying. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, I think LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan just because of that. But you put Michael Jordan in today's era, at the same age, you put him through the same, growing up the same. I think Michael Jordan would blow him out of the water. That's just me. That's why you can't compare eras. But I think if LeBron James isn't your dad, Bronny James probably isn't even playing college basketball. At least not D1. He's been given the best opportunity, the best training, best everything. And he obviously has talent, and he's able to elevate that talent from his experience that, hey, if my kid wants to go play basketball, if he shows talent, sure, we can spend some money and get him on the right teams, the right coaches, trainers, whatever. But unless he's a great talent, he's probably not going to have a chance because of that, because I don't have the disposable income like LeBron James does,
Yeah.
So, yeah, Bronny James, USC, a freshman at USC. We'll see how that pans out, and we'll talk about that more in the future, I guess, if he stays at USC, if he goes, if he is drafted, whatever. But speaking of USC, we're talking some Caleb Williams, who said he's not going to throw at the combine, and he's going to hold off until until USC's pro day on March 20th. People have been making a huge deal about this. Is this a mistake that he's not going to throw? Does it say more about his character, personality, more than his talent? Is it a big deal at all?
I don't know if it's a big deal. I mean, you've seen him play, game time situations. To me, the combine's very overrated. The combine is for the guys that you didn't get enough tape on.
Yeah.
There's so much social media. There's so much, everything's televised. They've seen this kid play under pressure. Him going out and throwing to a few guys running routes in a climate controlled space with no pads, no helmet. What can you really gain out of that?
Yeah, he's projected to go number 1 overall. Is there something he can do at the combine where they're going to go, okay, we're not going to draft him? It's going to make him drop? Outside of I
think maybe, and that's a weird thing to me.
They'll have interviews and talk about his character and his friends. And I've seen, if you've watched Draft Day, which is grossly exaggerated in how the thing works, but a lot of, the key stories fit. Where if a story comes out where he didn't, his friends didn't like him, his teammates didn't like him, yeah, sure. But physically going out there, you're like, man, he just didn't have it today. He wasn't, his arm strength was down. That's not going to matter to me. Honestly, you're going to watch in the game.
Yeah, the NFL's kind of weird like this too. They're always looking for that one thing that a guy doesn't do right. So if Caleb Williams was to go out and throw in the combine and his accuracy was off a little bit, he was having an off day, or, he doesn't know these receivers. He doesn't have timing, built down, or rhythm built down with these guys.
Yeah.
They're going to hold that against him when he had a spectacular, career in college and this past season was great. For him, there's no upside to throwing.
If you're projected the number 1 overall pick, there's nothing you can do. It's not like you go out there to cement that or whatever. And really,
this is for the guys that are going to be the later rounds. I mean, your first round guys, you've seen the film.
Maybe you go, you're like a mid-second round guy. Maybe you can jump to the first round. Maybe,
you're
situations.
Even some, these second, third, maybe some tight ends that didn't have the high reception numbers. They get to show some of their skills and talent and a little more of what they do, the lifting part, to be able to show guys in front of these NFL guys how much weight you can throw up, and
I think
actually getting clock times. They're getting to time these 40-yard dashes and see how quick off the line you really are. But even some of those are numbers are lies, right?
Yeah.
It's between the lines. How fast does a guy play? Maybe your 40 yards dash time isn't there, but you could still be a fast player on the field.
How you react, how you do in different situations, you freeze up. I think like the interview parts of this are good. Like you get
Yeah.
to understand people. Players stick out to you that because when you're in the war room on draft day and things don't go your way, you're looking at your draft board. You're looking at like obviously the Bears probably know, assuming they don't trade their pick away. The Bears want to draft Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's issues they got to deal with their current quarterback now and all that. But if they have that mindset, that's kind of already set up. Maybe they change their mind, but they have the number 1 overall pick. But if I don't know, I haven't studied the draft. I haven't really dug into that yet. But if you got the 10th or 11th pick and you have a guy that could, it's kind of projected to fall to you, but he goes at number 8, you're not going to say, well, crap, I don't have anything else, figured out. You're going to go interview all these players, figure out who's on your draft board. I think going out and throwing, like you said, in a controlled environment, like you can pick certain things like, okay, watching his game film didn't tell me this unless he had, some film on something specific, which I think after, was it 2 years at USC and about half a year at Oklahoma, that you can see everything. I think it's over exaggerated too for the projected number 1 overall pick. Let me go over some names that did not throw until their team's pro day. You tell me how things turned out for them. Andrew Luck, Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, Robert Griffin III, Sam Darnold, Kyler Murray, Bryce Young, and Jaden Daniels, also who's projected probably the number 2 quarterback, is not going to throw it to his pro day at LSU. Like RG3, Kyler. I mean, I'm just like how their careers went, just in general. Andrew Luck went number 1 overall. Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford, RG3 I think went number 2 overall. Kyler Murray went number 1 overall. Bryce Young went number 1 overall last year. And there were questions on Bryce Young. We didn't know. We thought like he was going to go number 1. We were like CJ Stroud, Bryce Young. But look at the difference. I mean, it's 1 year. I mean, Bryce Young has a chance to, we're not counting him out yet. But look at CJ Stroud over Bryce Young this first year.
Yeah.
The combine couldn't tell anybody about that,
Yeah. Yeah, that he will his team into the playoffs.
Yeah, seriously. And I mean,
I think the combines is really overrated. I think it's more of a spectacle for these guys. Like you said, sitting down and interviewing players, things like that, that's the important stuff.
Yeah. And I'll say even like maybe the back half or the last 10 picks of the first round, maybe. It just depends how many first round grades you have. I think, but in certain, like you said, like tight ends in a different offense and different scheme, they may be better receivers than you really know if they're not in a system that they're, or maybe they're better blockers than you think, because right now, that's a big deal with tight ends. Can you block? Can you block? Can you do everything that a tight end is ready to do? And a lot of that stuff is,
man, your defensive tackles as well. Those guys, defensive ends, they have something to prove to show how strong they really are. Maybe be able to show their agility more because they don't get to show that on the field as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, we're going to go to a quick break. We are going to be back to talk baseball here after the break. Be with you 1 second. Back here with you on the leadoff, moving to little baseball talk. The baseball season is about to start, and you know how we like to look towards the future on certain deals, and we're going to talk a little bit of MLB expansion. A lot of potential cities. I think, how many did you say? Like 8 cities that could get.
Yeah.
They're looking for like a two. I think they're looking to expand basically to 32 teams, at least in the near future. I don't know what the future holds. And we were kind of looking at that how the divisions would work, because they would have to redo all the divisions, move some teams, and depending on the new teams. I guess you would add one to the NL, one to the AL, whatever. But let's go over some of those those cities that could possibly get an expansion team. Talk about why a little bit, and then we'll go to the crazy article we saw that had the Yankees and Mets in the same division.
Yeah, you've got Charlotte, Vegas, Montreal, Nashville, Portland, Sacramento, Salt Lake City, and San Antonio.
So the A's more than likely will be in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I think Oakland is still trying to fight that, but it's already been approved, and they have a stadium on the works, and that's more than likely going to happen. Maybe they'll add Oakland to that list. I don't know if Oakland can put together a stadium. Montreal makes sense. It's weird, like the further, they say time heals all wounds. The further you get from, Montreal going to DC, you think, oh yeah, this would be great. We missed the team. It's nostalgic. And you're like, well, why didn't it work in the first place? And I know they had some stadium issues and a lot of deals, but it's like, is Montreal the best, or is that kind of like a nostalgic feeling? Because you talk about like football in Los Angeles, the second time around it didn't work, and I can argue the third time you have two teams. I guess that they have to make it work because of the stadium, but you can make an argument that they don't have a whole lot of fan support, Chargers or Rams.
I see that aspect of it. I think you have other cities though, there, like the Nashville and the Charlotte. I think that part of the country could use professional baseball. You got Salt Lake City is another one. San Antonio is kind of a weird one to me. I don't know the draw there. I mean, I know there's not really a team. They have a AA team.
Yeah.
In San Antonio, but I don't know about. I don't know.
That's a weird one. I haven't heard that on many lists.
Yeah.
San Antonio gets brought up because it's a major metro area, or as far as metro area, maybe not a major one, but it's a big metro area with just one team.
Mm-hmm.
I know San Antonio and Austin kind of get lumped together because they're pretty close geographically together. They're all, I think here pretty soon they're just going to be one big metro area as they keep growing in. But I would see them putting a baseball team in Austin before San Antonio.
Yeah.
Nashville and Charlotte makes sense. We talked before the show, like those. There are baseball fans in those towns, usually like Braves fans, just because of the southeast geographic area. That I think they could. They support a AAA team, both of them, so they could, go in there and you have an educated fan base, and I think they would be excited to have their own team. I think it could work in those areas. Obviously, those areas are growing in population as well. I think Montreal, just because that's what we talk about in basketball. Vegas and Seattle are the next two teams. Seattle wants their team back, and the same with Montreal. I don't know if it'll necessarily be expansion. I know they talked about the Tampa Bay Rays, or the Tampa Bay Rays, yeah. Moving there. I know there was an issue with them splitting, like going to be in Montreal half the season and Tampa the other half of the season. There was a couple of different situations. You talk about Tampa could relocate. I think there's a lot of possible relocation as well as where expansion maybe, because Vegas has been on the top of the list for expansion for probably the last 5 or 6 years, and then Oakland decides to up and go there. And I know Tampa with their stadium situation, the fan base situation. Even if you're talking, I know we'll get into division realignment here in a second, but it would make sense being in the AL East. You go up to Montreal, you're closer to Boston and Baltimore and New York, I think.
I mean, can there be less excuse me, can there be less fan support in Montreal than they're getting in Tampa anyway?
I mean, I think support-wise, they probably get enough. I don't know. I haven't looked at TV ratings. It's just
Do you
getting
think
to the
being a
stadium.
nostalgic team, if they were to bring them back and they did truly bring them back as the Expos, that would help?
They would have to bring it back as the Expos, right? Like, you couldn't have a Montreal team. I think I would be upset about that. I was never really an Expo. I barely remember the Expos as a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you brought them back, they would have to be the Expos. And yeah, I think if you relocated the Rays there, who they're a good team. They've been a good team the last decade, if not longer. But that was one of the things with Montreal is they had a team that wasn't good. I don't know that they ever competed for anything, and really they were 20 years, 30 years, no, in the 70s, so about 30 years a franchise.
And it's weird to see the talent that ran through there. They had a lot of young Randy Johnson, Vladdy Guerrero. Like, there were some names that
Pedro
they had.
Martinez.
They drafted Tom Brady.
Yeah, Tom Brady was their last draft pick, or is the last active draft pick, or was until he retired.
Yeah, I mean that franchise ran through what became talented players, so they had opportunities. I think they could do better than what Tampa's offering them. I mean, obviously, where in Tampa, there, you're in a retirement community. You don't have as young of a mass, of supporters.
There's issues with the stadium where it sits at in St. Petersburg, where there's only a few bridges coming from Tampa Bay to get there. It's just a nightmare to get there in traffic. And I think location is a big part of it, where if you don't have devoted fans like the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Red Sox,
yeah,
like, sure, if it's convenient, you could probably get a lot more fans in there. I think it's just a mix of that plus an outdated stadium, plus it's hard to get there because they wanted to build it in St. Petersburg and not Tampa Bay, not Tampa itself. There's a whole mix of things, but I know I think getting them in Tampa would help in terms of a new stadium, but I think the MLB might want to do something because I want to say St. Petersburg is looking at rebuilding the stadium or rebuilding a stadium. And I think, that's kind of part of the issue is their location. It's just because St. Petersburg is kind of like a peninsula at the bottom in the Tampa Bay area. So it just depends. But I think if you were just, outside of any relocation, I think Montreal and Nashville would probably be the front runners. Maybe Charlotte over Nashville.
Yeah.
I think those would be
I think I like the Charlotte as the next franchise outside of the A's. If that deal finalizes to Vegas, which I think is good. I think Vegas is a good spot for a team. I think Charlotte should be the next franchise they add.
Yeah, and I think
and I like the idea of rolling out. I mean, I know the A's relocating isn't changing anything. I know you would have to do 2 teams at a time.
Yeah.
Adding expansions. I don't know, maybe a Salt Lake City could be. Yeah,
I mean, you would think there's like not a lot of baseball in that region. You have the Rockies. You're about to have the A's though, because they're moving to Vegas, and it's really it's just a few hour drive from there. I think it's more common to see more expansion out west, just because that's especially when you think of baseball. But there's already
Portland. I think Portland, Oregon. That's a good
That's an interesting one because it's so close to Seattle. Two smaller markets. That's intriguing me because it's not a huge population or a huge populated area in the region of Seattle and Portland. But it worked with basketball for a while. I mean, hell, there was a time when you had basketball in Seattle, Vancouver, and Portland all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that, like, I don't know off the top, man, maybe a couple million people, maybe more than that if you include Vancouver. But I've heard a lot of. I mean, they're in Portland. They're actively trying to get a stadium built to draw a team in, which that's another episode. I think those are mistakes because you don't put as much into the stadium. You just kind of get a stadium that's not going to age well because you're not going to go above and beyond. Look at the Rays, Tampa. They built that stadium and it was
and I think
10 years old before they had a team.
It's odd to build a stadium. You almost build and design, and a stadium works around what a team is.
Yeah.
So, you want to get a franchise there or a franchise committed, with the name, and then kind of play off of that and build off of that for what you're doing. So I think that's kind of weird to just do a cookie cutter ballpark and then throw up some logos and say, hey, this is your home.
Portland's was pretty wild. I know they've had a few different renderings that hadn't gotten very far, but it was like a stadium with a dome built over it, not on the stadium. But, like sort of like Seattle's retractable roof's not really on, like it's over the stadium, but it's not exactly like enclosed.
But kind of like that. LA, the Rams stadium, how theirs is
sort of, yeah. But it was like the rendering I saw, the roof wasn't even like attached to the stadium. And it wasn't retractable. It just went over, which I think modern day you're gonna put retractable roof one way or the other. But it was just like a giant canopy, but it was a roof. But then the stadium was kind of open air, but it was under that roof because obviously the Northwest you're gonna get a lot of rain, so you need something retractable one way or the other. But I think Portland is a good one. If baseball decided to jump to 36 teams, I've seen videos where people say this is what 36 teams would look like. I think Portland's a very, not no pun intended, but I think it would be a home run. I think it would work there. The way with TV deals work, the way, you hold out a team from a metropolitan area and give them the team. There's just support because you haven't seen a lot of teams recently in the last, 20 years, expansion not work.
Yeah.
I mean, Cleveland, Baltimore, whatever, those teams got back a team. But you saw Houston, it's helped there. Houston, I mean, football in Texas. But you've seen Vegas support a hockey team. I mean, you've seen lots of these. They don't. The relocations you've seen, the last few have not been from expansion teams that haven't worked. It's the Rams going back to LA. It's San Diego not being able to get a stadium. Oakland not being able to get a stadium. But you have that up, the league realignment, or can you pull that up to look at if you went to 32 teams? Because you'd have to realign something. I don't think they'd be this drastic because you'd want to keep teams in certain, and baseball is a very traditionalist sport.
Let me see. Make sure.
Maybe I can pull it up in that text chain.
I just want to make sure I get the correct. Well, that one's
because obviously you'd have to realign a little bit. I know for so long when you move the Brewers to the NL, which it was a little different than where you had interleague play, but NL and AL for all intents and purposes were separate leagues. Like you would have a little bit of interleague play and then the World Series is the only time. Now you're so, it doesn't matter AL, NL. That just makes a difference in you play a few less games and they're on a different side of the bracket in the playoffs, where now every team plays every other team at least one series throughout the year.
So, you would have you have like an Eastern Conference East Division.
Mm-hmm.
Red Sox, Mets, Yankees, and Phillies. So you're doing more geographical, where you're putting just groups of teams together there and bringing, you're essentially combining NLAL, 2NL, 2AL there. North Division, you've got the Reds, Guardians, Tigers, and Blue Jays.
Yeah, like a North Midwest type.
It's in North Division's what they're calling it.
Hold on, the first one was Yankees, Red Sox, Mets, and Phillies. Okay.
Yeah. Mid-Atlantic Division, you got Baltimore, a Charlotte expansion team, Pittsburgh, and Washington.
Okay.
Southeast Division, you would have Braves, Marlins, the Nashville expansion team, and Tampa.
Wow. So this is for 32 teams. They're just expanding. Mm-hmm. So they're assuming it's Nashville and Charlotte. That's interesting. I don't think that will happen. I think it's one or the other. I think they're gonna eventually maybe both cities will have teams, but I think you could if you put it in Charlotte, you would draw the fans from Nashville. Because on the top of my head, I feel like Charlotte's closer to Nashville, maybe. But you would, I think putting two teams in the same region like that, because I think you can, even if you staggered it and put a team in Charlotte, they would draw regional excitement, and then I think dropping a team in Nashville 10 years later.
But when you look at the way these alignments are, they almost need that fourth team in that area.
Yeah.
To fill that.
Yeah, because you're talking Braves, Rays, Marlins, and you don't have another team. You're talking like New Orleans or something.
Yeah, it's a stretch. Yeah. So then we would move to the Western Conference.
Okay.
And you'd have the Midwest Division, which would be the Cubs, the White Sox, the Brewers, and the Twins.
Yeah.
That 100% makes sense. Your Southwest Division, you'd have Houston, Kansas City, St. Louis, and Texas.
Kansas City has been one of those teams throughout sports history that have been thrown into East divisions, West divisions. But they're just kind of – so Texas, Houston – Kansas City, and who else?
St. Louis.
Oh my God! I don't know how you move that around, but it's like Kansas City and St. Louis make 100% the same division.
Well, let's move on down the list, and then it may make more sense once we. So the Pacific Coast Division, you've got, and I guess here because you have an influx of teams, say from Texas West, you've got a lot of teams in that area. So the way they divide this up, it's a little, I mean, you could have moved some around, but I think they're just looking for some diversity. So your Pacific Coast is the Rockies, the A's, which would be Oakland or Vegas, Seattle, and the Giants. And then your West Division, you've got Arizona, Los Angeles Angels, Los Angeles Dodgers, and the Padres. So that one, they're crossing a little more in those divisions.
Yeah.
Where you probably could have pulled out in Arizona from the West, moved in the Giants, And,
now that you say the teams, okay, the teams I don't have an issue with now. Maybe, and I'm picking hairs, maybe it's the names of the divisions, because you said Dodgers, Angels, Padres, Diamondbacks?
Mm-hmm.
That should be the Southwest Division.
That's the West.
I know that
Coast.
So
the Rockies are in the Pacific Coast.
Yeah. I mean, call the Astros, Rangers, Cardinals, Royals, call that like the Central Division. I know it's in the West Coast, but whatever. I mean, Arizona Cardinals used to be in the East Division too.
They're basically breaking this up like other sports are, West versus East.
Yeah.
It's very much divided West and East. So you got Midwest, Southwest, Pacific Coast, and just West.
But I mean, like in the NHL, the Dallas Stars are in the Western Conference, but they're in the Central Division. You have the Pacific and the Central and the West, and then I believe the Atlantic and the North. I don't know the divisions off the top. I know they've just realigned it in the last few years. Yeah, I mean, that's to an exaggerative level. Put these teams together. I wouldn't mind it because as a Rangers fan, it does suck when a lot of your games start at 9:00 local time because they're playing in Oakland or even Vegas. It's still the Pacific, but all the teams in your divisions outside of Houston are in the Pacific time zone. So you're talking about St. Louis, Houston, and Kansas City. Yeah. Like all your games would be 7 o'clock.
I kind of like the way this is broken down. I think better creating these smaller divisions that are these divisions that are within the, your territory, your market, per se. You're creating a small market of teams throughout the country. It makes
for better rivalries, I think, because.
And like you said, with deals, I mean, most of their games are being played in division. And maybe they could do something like how the NFL does, which I think is good, is you have certain divisions that you cross with each year.
Yeah.
Yeah,
because MLB now, because it works with 30 teams, is everybody plays the same team. Everybody plays your division teams a certain amount of time, but you play every single team in the league at least once, and their schedule is like completely perfectly broken down. But I know it has to do a lot with success and relevance in teams, but I don't feel like the A's are a rival to the Rangers or the Mariners. And to me, it's like, because they're so far away, I don't normally interact with anybody from Seattle nor on a normal basis. Now, I know the same thing can be said about the Cowboys, but the Eagles are a rival because both teams have had success and fight. But I feel more of a rivalry with the Houston Astros because I deal with people from Houston every day, and they've only been in the division, the last few years.
Well, and you're so close that
you're going to deal with the
fans.
Talk about college, like Texas A&M, TCU, Oklahoma. It's because you see people every day that cheer for those schools. I think this would bring more rivalry to teams who don't have a lot of rivals. Funny
enough, I know a lot of St. Louis Cardinals fans in this DFW area. Yeah. I know quite a few people that are Cardinals fans. So I don't know anyone's a Kansas City fan.
Cardinals fans are rivals for a different reason for Rangers fans. Maybe not anymore because now they've won the World Series. But
yeah, but I think just geographically you're close enough that you get that bleed over. Like you said, you don't get a lot of Seattle fans here or A's fans or true A's fans.
Like
you don't get a lot of that.
Rangers and A's and Angels have all been in the same division, for 30 years, if not longer.
And there's still not that much of a rivalry.
Yeah, and Houston's a big rival, and they're right down the road. They've only, again, maybe 10 years. I don't remember when they did the line, maybe a little more than 10 years. But
the way this is broken out, though, when you look at it, it does make a lot more sense to add in Nashville and Charlotte as expansions.
Just so it's spaced out more.
When you look at a breakdown like this, geographically.
Because there's only so many, like you can't just put a team where there isn't a town, or isn't a big city.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put more in the West, where Salt Lake City, sure, Portland.
But then now you're going to have a team that has to go across.
Yeah, but once you get west of, there's this imaginary line people like to place where it goes to Fort Worth and Kansas City and Minneapolis. Once you get west of that, there's really not a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's just empty farmland. And then you get spattered Denver, Salt Lake City, Vegas. Most of that's mountains anyways. So there's not a lot of towns. So you honestly, outside of cities
you have to look
growing
at the
huge population.
Yeah.
The West is pretty much filled out. The East has a lot more opportunity for new, like you say, Nashville, Charlotte. You can think of, we already said Montreal. You can think of other towns, New Orleans. Whereas the West Coast, it's kind of filled out. Like now you have Oakland, you have Portland, Salt Lake City, and that's about it.
Yeah.
You could throw in El Paso in there or something. El Paso's pretty big, but you have a lot more opportunity in the East Coast just because that's where all the cities are.
Well, and you have to look at this as well. You brought up Austin earlier. You could see Austin getting a team. The thing about Austin is it's actually a really small market, a small town.
Yeah.
It's almost flooded with the University of Texas there, as that's their professional sports.
Yeah.
That I don't know if a professional team in Austin would do that well.
You would have to combine it as the San Antonio, Austin, whatevers, because I
Hmm.
mean, because it's what, like, is it even a 2 hour drive through? I mean,
No.
obviously with traffic,
No.
that could be a 4 hour drive, but they're very close
Yeah.
together, and they're
It would
filling
be
in like it's between
in somewhere like
Austin's.
the Houston or DFW, they would be considered the same
Yeah,
metro
it's
area.
like between Austin and San Antonio, there's not a lot of empty land through 35. Going down Interstate 35, and that's just filling in more. It's basically one metro area. It's going to be. I'm just saying, if you're going to move a team or start a team there, I think right now the popular thing would be is like, hey, put it in Austin. I don't know
Yeah.
that you put it in between. I know we're happy about putting teams in suburbs nowadays and 45 minutes outside of a town.
I mean,
I guess you
so,
could put it right smack dab in the middle and be about 45 minutes from both
and
Austin and San Antonio.
look at the Spurs though. As successful as they've been, I mean, that's still relatively a small basketball market in the
Yeah.
country. I mean, they're not a real popular team outside of that
Yeah.
area,
San
really. Even
Antonio is
being in
like,
Texas, like I don't even you don't see or hear a lot about the Spurs.
San Antonio is, if you're talking about city population, San Antonio is in the top 10. It's just ahead of Dallas. But you have to think about metro areas where Dallas Fort Worth's number 4 in the country, just behind Chicago, just ahead of Houston.
Hmm.
And then San Antonio, I want to say, is like their metro area because it's mostly San Antonio, unless you want to count Austin, which we're not doing yet. That's 2 separate metro areas. Austin's San Antonio's further down the list, as well as Austin, until, you want to combine them. And city proper population is, you can, for statistical purposes, you can say this is, hey, Dallas has 1.6 million people, whatever it is. But no, Dallas has 8 million people, because I don't live in Dallas proper, but I'm in Dallas almost, maybe if not every week, multiple times a week, every month for sure, going to Dallas
Yeah.
for work or whatever. I tell people I live in Dallas. I have no problem. I live in Fort Worth. I live in Dallas, Fort Worth. I don't live in those proper cities, but I'm a fan of those teams. I support those teams. My money goes to support those teams. You can't just not count somebody because they don't live in the metro area. And yeah, San Antonio is a big city in terms of city proper population. But
Yeah.
metro area, it's in a small market, very small market. Once you're outside of San Antonio, it's unless you're going north towards Austin, there's not a lot around.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like, when you say a Charlotte or a Nashville, I mean, Nashville kind of falls in the same category. Yeah, Nashville itself is big, but it's a growing metro area as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we talk San Antonio, I know they've gotten attention about an NFL team. I want to say when the Bills, I know it's all just contractual talk, trying to get deals done. But before the Bills got their new stadium agreed upon, they were like, we're going to move to Austin or San Antonio. The Chargers did the same deal. Some people thought the Chargers would move. Al Davis said, hey, we'll move the Raiders to San Antonio. I think San Antonio could support a football team because it's Texas, because there's a huge influx of Cowboys fans in San Antonio. And I'm sure a lot of Texans fans, because
Mm-hmm.
they're a couple hours from Houston. They're about 4 hours from Dallas. I think football could, because I think a lot of casual fans will get behind a football team. But baseball, I don't know. Sure, some people who aren't hardcore baseball fans go to baseball games, but financially they're not supporting the team. They're not buying a ton of apparel, going to games, buying season tickets, things like that. I think you would get that just because it's a football team in Texas. Can San Antonio support a baseball team? I don't know. They probably could, I think, but when you're talking about expansion, they're far down on the list. I'll put Nashville, Charlotte, Montreal, I'll put Portland ahead of them. I don't know that much about Salt Lake City, but I feel like because there's not, what's the closest team? Like obviously Vegas is going to be one soon, but Denver, that's not, on a map they look close together, but they're, in between mountains.
Yeah.
I feel like a team in Salt Lake City would do better because Salt Lake City feels more isolated, I think. in terms of a team. Like you get a baseball team, and again, I don't know how baseball works in that, how popular baseball is in that region of the country, but Salt Lake City and San Antonio are pretty similar, and they have one professional sports team in basketball.
Well, do you think the MLB in their rule changes and speeding up the game and trying to make the game more active and more fun for the fans to watch is a ploy, is part of this to expand, is to try to gain more baseball fans that would watch Major League Baseball?
Yeah, I think baseball is on the up right now. Like they're not. I can't imagine them ever competing with the NFL, and they're not for the next 10 or 20 years for sure, unless I know they change something. You don't gain that overnight. It's got to be even the NFL at one point was less popular than baseball. It's got to be a generational thing, but I think they're on the up and up. And there are a lot of teams where you throw them in Nashville, I have no doubt that they'll be successful. Charlotte, Montreal, I kind of wonder because I was so young then. I don't know the issues in Montreal, why the team didn't work out. But I think they would be successful in Montreal. It's hard to believe. I mean, the MLB only has 2 less teams than the NFL. It seems like there's NFL teams everywhere, and not so much with baseball. I think the rule changes can help. Like you get that little bit more of influx. I think if you move a team to Nashville with the old rules, I still think they survive for a while. Like you're going to get the excitement. You're going to get the support the first few years. It's when, shoot, our team sucks. We're losing 100 games a year with an expansion team. That's probably, like, I know you saw the Vegas Knights and even the Seattle Kraken succeed the first few years.
Yeah.
Golden State just won a Stanley Cup. But the NHL expansion rules are a little bit different anyways, where you get more competitive teams. But I think the rules will help an expansion team when you're in the 4th, the 5th, the 6th year. Because now you're the honeymoon phase is over. Mm-hmm. Assuming you're not competing for a championship, you don't have. Baseball is really weird where the Cubs, I could go to a Cubs game. Like if I go to Chicago, like I want to go to a Cubs game or a Yankees game because they're the Cubs. You have that history. Whereas Nashville, I know they have minor league baseball history, so maybe there's something they can tie to there. But it's like this is a new team. There's not a lot of history. We've never been to the playoffs. More than likely, we suck. You at that point, you need to be able to want to follow that team and understand what's happening. Like with the Rangers sucked for the last 6 or 7 years. I'm still active. I'm not going to as many games probably, but I'm still actively following the team, knowing what's happening, knowing who's upcoming in the farm system. I think that's how you need to gain those fans because people's attention spans are shorter these days.
Yeah,
with TikTok and Instagram and looking through reels, and we're part of that problem. But to gain those fans, I think if you can get past the barrier of baseball's slow, baseball's boring, I don't think that. I'm fine going to a baseball game and sitting for 3.5 hours, but you get those fans in there, they need to learn, and that's the only thing you have when you have a team that is rebuilding or sucks, to use a more crude term. To understand what's happening, what's the future, what can we get excited about with this team? Because I can talk to friends I know that like, oh yeah, sure, I'm a fan of the Rangers. They suck, right? Like, well, yeah, they suck, but they got this guy coming, Evan Carter's coming up. Okay, well, that doesn't excite me until Evan Carter's here contributing. Wyatt Langford. Talking about who's coming up, it can get exciting in a fan base, and I think you're going to have those fans in general anyways, but I do think the rule changes, if you're putting it out there as maybe not a conspiracy theorist, but a plan where, hey, let's put these rules in place before we go to expand to these towns. I think you're right.
Get some excitement, get fans of the game, not specifically teams yet, and then place teams in those markets
Yeah,
that need
because
it.
too, like you go to Nashville, it's not like, hey, we have a bunch of new baseball fans. I mean, there are baseball fans in Nashville, you know. Vanderbilt in Nashville is a very good baseball school, a baseball college, at least of recent years, putting a lot of superstars out. So it's not like they don't know, but you're going to get an influx of fans who are casual fans, and it would make more sense to go ahead and change the rules now. So we don't expand there and then in 2 years change the rules anyways. And now they have to worry, like they're learning the game. And you're like, well, crap, what's this now? They just changed it. What's the pitch clock? What the heck is that? You know, what happens when they violate the pitch clock or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to have that where there's a lot of people who probably are sports fans that just don't pay that much attention to baseball if they don't have a team. I don't know. I've never had that experience living in Dallas, being born in the 80s that we've being born in the 80s where we got a hockey team in 93, where when I got interested in sports, we have every sport. You know, I've never grown up without a hockey team, a baseball team, a football team, or anything. So I don't know. I know there's still sports fans, you know, in San Diego, you know, there's still football fans. There's still basketball fans. I've saw a documentary about a sports bar in Alaska that, yeah, they just pick their team and they wear their jerseys and they follow their teams. Like Alaska doesn't have any team. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it was in Anchorage, but they don't have any professional teams. So I know the want is there. It's not like you're just going to a new market and they're like, what is baseball? You know, but there is going to be that influx of fans who didn't really care about it before because they didn't have a team. And now, you know, they're going to want to learn about it.
Well, and that could change, you know, if you're looking at adding into that, you know, region of the country of between Charlotte and Nashville, you know, what does that do to the Braves? Because I think that's probably a lot of the Braves fans.
Yeah, because you look at
in
the
those
Braves
areas.
as obviously they have history. Started, I mean, Boston, Milwaukee, having Hank Aaron, then moving to Atlanta, and they've had success in Atlanta. But that fan base definitely, I mean, and that's how you get a lot of fans is having success, obviously. Whereas maybe like Southern Georgia, Northern Florida fans, I bet you there's a lot of Braves fans in that region
Mhm.
that had the option Tampa or Atlanta. And I know they didn't start at the same time, but who pick Atlanta and like, well, Atlanta's good. You know, they won had 20 straight division titles. I know they
Yeah.
only got one championship out of that, and then they've recently won another. Success is a big part of that. But yeah, I know that, you know, because we travel family in, you know, Tennessee, that region of the country are, you know, it's kind of split between, you have some St. Louis because St. Louis is relatively close. I've seen Rangers support out there. I've seen
Yeah.
Braves support out there. There's a big, I don't know, triangle, whatever the shape is. I'm not looking at a map right now, but a big region with pretty big, you know, pretty big cities, Memphis, Nashville, Charlotte has North Carolina has a bunch of
Well, and they're not far
towns.
from, you know, Louisville,
Louisville
Kentucky,
as
just
well,
north
yeah.
of Nashville. Yeah.
And then you have Cincinnati in that area too, the Reds, where it's
Mhm.
not too far. Like you just gotta go across Kentucky. But
Yeah.
now that we talked about it more, I think you've convinced me more that Charlotte and Nashville would, you know, they could piggyback off each other.
Well, that's what, you know, like you were talking earlier about the West breaking the East. Like the East is so much more populated for
Yeah.
that area versus the West. I mean, you can't split East and West straight down the map evenly.
No.
You've got to go just, you know, just east of Texas, you know, maybe that eastern Texas line. That's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, I mean,
That
because you have, like I mentioned, Kansas City, Dallas has the same deal with the
Mhm.
Cowboys in the East and the Rangers in the West. And I mean, the Cowboys in the East are, you know, that's a business situation that's why they play in the East. It's not necessarily, but we are in that area where, like, right down the middle, you have Minnesota. There, some of their teams play in the East, some play in the West. You know,
Yeah.
that's just how it breaks down. Because I mean, even if you could split it down the middle, you still would probably have these teams in the middle where, like I said, I know Arizona Cardinals used to be the St. Louis Cardinals and they were already in the East Division, but Arizona played in the East. The the Miami Heat, for God knows what reason, I don't even know, but I know the Miami Heat played in the Eastern Conference for a year or two.
Do you
Or
do
the
you
Western
like
Conference, sorry, the Western Conference for a year or two.
Do you like the breakdown the way that would be proposed? What that scenario looks like as far as in your area, like the NFL, you have AFC, NFC within the same regions, and they cross different divisions. Where you're going like the NBA, East versus West, and you have divisions within the East and West, kind of breaking
There'd
those
be
down.
it's a lot of change. In theory, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, we look at Texas A&M. You know, A&M goes, and I know there's political reasons why they haven't played in a decade. But it does hurt when they're not in the same conference, competing against each other, competing against the same teams, you know, looking at each other in the standings. So it does help to have those teams. Like in general, yeah, it's good for the Rangers, Cardinals, Royals, and Astros. And that's probably not even a big deal because if you tell Seattle fans, hey, Rangers aren't in your division anymore, I'm like, okay, not a big deal. But then you say, hey, Yankees, you're in a division. You still have the Red Sox, I guess, but it's the Phillies and the Mets now. And I think that'll ruffle up some feathers. Although you have the crosstown rivalry, you know, the Phillies and Yankees are somewhat of rivals. You know, back when there were 8 teams in
Still a
professional
very
baseball,
iconic.
they play Yankees and Phillies play in World Series most years. You know,
Well,
a
when
lot of years.
you have that same situation just with Chicago. You know what the way Chicago's divided between the White Sox and the Cubs.
Yeah.
Now they're playing in the same division. It builds even more rivalry there in town.
Yeah, and it just depends. Are you splitting up any rivals? Like I'm like in that instance, Yankees, Red Sox are still together. I guess you kind of break up Cubs and Cardinals. I not that they're never gonna play. I still think you make it a purpose for them to play every year.
Yeah.
A couple of series or whatever. But I mean, because you don't have to keep it separated like American League, National League, where you sometimes have interleague play. It's just like the NBA now, or it's like the NHL, or the NFL. It's like it doesn't matter. That only matters in terms of playoff standings and division standings. That's all that matters
Well,
now.
and you could probably even break these up when they're traveling, like we were talking about, where if you were to go play this other division, these 4 teams,
Yeah,
you take a road trip and you play all 4 of those teams on this road trip.
yeah.
And then you come back and you get a home stand, and then, maybe you go play another group. I mean, maybe they could break it up like that, where you would have those road and you would just play within that division because it's geographically now it works.
In terms of talking about MLB expansion and educating fans, I think it's easier for new fans to wrap their head around that orientation of the standings or of the divisions.
Yeah.
Like, because as a baseball fan, I can tell me NL, AL, East, West, whatever, I could tell you the teams just because I'm used to that. And then you look at it, it's like, if you look at it on a map, you're like, yeah, Seattle, Oakland, Los Angeles, and then 2 teams in Texas. You're like, that's like, you can't divide that up.
Weird.
And you could realign them where like, yeah, I've seen some things where you just tweak them a little bit, move a couple teams, like that makes more sense. You know, it's like, when the Chiefs are in the AFC West, and Dallas is in the NFC East, and Kansas City is further east than Dallas. And again, it's Dallas is in that market. Dallas wants to be in those markets for viewer purposes. But it's like you could realign these. Like I've seen all kinds of videos, and it's not as drastic as this. It's just kind of like, why don't you move this team over here, and then look, it makes more sense in turn. But there's been expansion, relocations, all kinds of stuff where you don't just switch every single time. And there's really cool reasons. Like if you want to know why teams are in what divisions, like usually there's a cool story behind it. But yeah, I think a lot of this, I mean, on paper makes sense. I don't know that they would drastically go to change this, but who knows? I mean, the NHL,
the way baseball's moving and what they're trying to gain.
Yeah.
with
I
the
mean,
new viewership, like I could see them making a major move like this.
the NHL basically did it. I mean, they were
Mhm.
already Western and Eastern Conference, but they just completely redid divisions, renamed divisions. But NHL had a lot of expansion and some relocation, and maybe that's going to play a part. Whereas baseball has a relocation possible and possibly another one, and looking at expansion where like, hey, we need to move these around. Like that happens in sports. These are not going to be divisions forever.
Yeah.
They are going to move around at some point. And maybe it makes sense now that you have now we've had they realigned back when they moved the Astros to the AL.
Yeah.
So now, like, if we're adding two teams and having one team relocate, possibly another, maybe it's a good time to
And if they're looking for
do that.
future expansion on top of that, it's almost better to do this where you eliminate the AL and NL,
Yeah,
because now it's just geographically where do we place these teams, and then how do we
you might as
split the
well
divisions?
eliminate AL, NL. Like, I know people hate it, but it's basically eliminated because, like I said before, they only played in the World Series.
Mm.
Then 30 years ago, whenever it started, interleague play, you'd have one or two series where you'd play interleague. Then when they switched 30 teams and you switch a team back to because for so long when the Astros were in the NL, it was the NL had 16 teams, AL had 14. Then when you switch it and you have 15 and 15, you have to have an interleague game. They would still call it interleague play, and you would have one or two teams. You'd have one matchup play interleague all the time. And now, like I said, everybody plays everybody. You've pretty much just severed the difference between the AL and NL. At this point, it's playoff and division purposes now. That's the only reason you have those. And I mean, I understand, but so many teams have changed. Like the original American League and National League competing leagues, you've had so much turnover. So many teams go, between leagues. Like, I get it as it would be cool if they kept that unique part of baseball, but at this point it's like you're holding up a dead body. It's not doing anything. Well, that was a long show for a 1-year anniversary. Hopefully everybody thought it was entertaining as we did. Don't forget to subscribe to Peak One Sports on YouTube. Follow us on all social media platforms. And thanks for tuning in. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, here's to the next year with Tony. I'm Ashton. We'll see you guys later.